All right. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. My name is Hannah Crapeau, and I'm the Content Marketing Manager here at Certiport. We're so happy to have everyone joining us for our first month of Swift webinar this afternoon. Now, please note that this presentation is being recorded, so we will be sending out a full link to the recording after our webinar has concluded. If you have any questions, we've set aside some time at the end for reviewing the questions that come through in the Q&A or the chat feature. So if you have questions about the content or about the program in general, feel free to drop those into either the chat or the Q&A, and we'll make sure to have Sabrina address those. Now, today we are going to give you a broad overview of all things app development with Swift certification, and we'll be learning from our very own Sabrina Beck. Sabrina is the product manager for the app development with Swift program here at Certiport. She has over 15 years of experience across strategic planning, product development, global operations, and go-to-market execution. Originally a music ed major, she graduated with a BS in business marketing and earned her MBA from Brigham Young University. A mom to 3 children and 3 tail-wagging boys, Sabrina has devoted her career to understanding what people need and building products that help them improve their circumstances and succeed in reaching their goals. She's pleased with the work done at the app development with Swift team and has done the work that they've done to help students validate their skills in Xcode and Swift to set them on their journey to becoming future star developers in the app economy. And with that introduction, Sabrina will go ahead and pass it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Hannah, for that wonderful introduction, and welcome to everyone who's joined with us today. Like Hannah mentioned, I wanted to provide you with a quick overview of the app development with Swift certification program at Certiport, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end that I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you might have. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And let's see. Get this going. So I hope everyone can see this.
Looks great, Sabrina.
Awesome. All right. So like I mentioned, I'm excited to share with you a brief overview of the Develop in Swift program and the resources we have available to help support learning and certification in your classroom. So just to give a high-level overview of Swift and Xcode, Swift and Xcode are 2 very integral and intuitive tools that professionals use to build our favorite apps. Swift is Apple's native programming language used to write apps for iOS, macOS, watchOS, tvOS, and iPadOS. It was designed to be anyone's first programming language and can open doors to the world of coding. Xcode is Apple's integrated development environment, or IDE, for all of Apple's platforms that I mentioned earlier. It is a toolbox developers use to build their apps written with Swift and other Apple developer tools. Yes, Xcode requires Mac to run, and it is freely available for download from either the App Store or from the Apple developer website. Develop in Swift is a comprehensive coding curriculum available from Apple. It prepares students for college or a career in app development using the Swift programming language. It is complemented with free online professional learning for educators and certification for students. All Develop in Swift books are available to download for free from the Apple Bookstore. Last year, we announced the release of 2 app development with Swift certification exams that align with the Develop in Swift curriculum in Xcode 12. This summer, the exams were updated to align with Xcode 13. And since some of you may not be familiar with the new exams, I wanted just to provide a high-level overview of each exam and who would benefit the most from them. Our first exam, the App Development with Swift Associate exam, is designed to certify knowledge of the impact of computing and apps on society, economies, and cultures, all while exploring iOS app development. Based on Xcode 13 and aligned with the Develop in Swift Explorations curriculum, this exam is perfect for candidates who are new to coding and want to explore iOS app development. Our second exam, the App Development with Swift Certified User, aligns with the Develop in Swift Fundamentals curriculum. Also based on Xcode 13, it certifies candidates have knowledge of core concepts and practices that professional Swift programmers use on a daily basis. The certification is intended for candidates who have coding experience but are new to Swift coding language. I mentioned earlier that Swift and Xcode require Mac OS to run. However, since both exams are delivered through our Compass platform, they can be taken on either a Mac or a PC. They are also available on exams from home. The Develop in Swift courses and certifications are designed to help school and high school and higher education students earn recognition for their Swift knowledge. One of the most frequent questions I have received from educators is which exam is the right exam to teach in their classroom? And the answer is, it depends. The Develop in Swift courses and certifications are designed to help high school and higher ed students earn recognition for their Swift knowledge. Explorations is designed to help learners with little to no computer science background learn to code with the Swift programming language. It is ideal for high school students exploring computer science tracks, but can also be taught in higher ed as a course for non-computer science majors. Explorations also has high alignment with the Develop in Swift APCS Principles curriculum. Students who take the AP course taught with Develop in Swift will also be prepared to sit for the associate exam. Fundamentals and data collections are designed for learners who have basic coding knowledge and experience and want to build their app development skills using Swift. Although both courses can be taught in advanced high school classrooms, we tend to see these courses taught predominantly in higher ed for computer science majors. Regardless of the pathway students follow, by the time they complete the data collections course, they should have the skills needed to produce their own app with the potential to be successful in the App Store. As I mentioned earlier, the Develop in Swift curriculum is available for download from the Apple Bookstore. If you or your students do not have access to Mac outside of your classroom, courseware for both fundamentals and explorations is available for download for LMS and Canvas Commons. Educators whose school uses an LMS other than Canvas can create a free for teachers account at canvas.instructure.com. And I believe I have points that didn't show up when they were supposed to. Anyway, Apple also offers free professional learning for educators who want to be confident and prepared to teach Develop in Swift. This professional learning course is designed to help educators learn the foundational knowledge needed to teach Swift and Xcode effectively. These self-paced courses are available through Canvas Learning as well. Also, for educators who prefer in-person learning, Apple has partnered with NC3 to offer a 2-week training seminar for either the Develop in Swift Explorations or Develop in Swift Fundamentals curriculum. Participants will learn how to code with Swift and best practices that educators have used to build successful Swift programs in their classrooms. To learn more and to register for this training, you can visit nc3.net/training. I want you to be successful in building your Swift program. I would strongly encourage you to visit the Apple for Education website. It contains resources designed to support learning, such as design workbooks your students can use in class, resources for coding clubs, and resources to help you hold your own app design showcases. You can also register for the self-paced professional development course I mentioned earlier that's available through Canvas by scrolling down to the Learn to Teach Swift section located down on the lower, darker section of the webpage. To easily navigate to the Apple for Education website, go to certiport.com/Apple and click on the Teaching Code with Apple link located on the right side of the webpage. So that is the end of my overview. I do want to thank you before I forget. I do want to thank you for helping your students explore app development and expand their knowledge of Swift and Xcode. If you have any questions after this webinar, feel free to reach out to your Certiport representative, and let's go to Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sabrina. We had a couple questions come through on the chat. One question is, Swift only available on Apple products, or can this be done on a PC?
So Swift and Xcode is specifically for Mac operating systems. It's Apple's platform, and just like any Unix or any PC-based platform, it's going to be specific to Apple. So yes, it does require a Mac to run. It will not run on a PC.
Perfect. Then follow up to that, we have a teacher who has students who use iPads instead of traditional Mac laptops or desktops. Are they still able to execute the program if their students are using iPads?
So there is some additional functionality with, I believe, with testing apps and whatnot within the iOS. It's fairly new. It's been released in the last update or so with iPad OS. It's not full functionality by any means, and so students will still need to have access to Mac OS to really take full advantage of this Swift and Xcode platform.
So as follow-up to that, does that apply for taking the certification exam as well?
No, it does not. So the certifications are delivered through our platform, which is called Compass, for those who are familiar. And we want to make sure that it will work on all machines that use the Compass platform. And so it is available to take on a Mac or a PC. We've also found that most of the testing centers are not the same labs. The computer labs that students use to go to take their exams are not the same labs that they use to learn Swift in, and those ones tend to be more PC. So we wanted to make sure that they had access to the exam at their school.
Okay. And then we had another follow-up question that I'll go ahead and answer. So will this webinar be available as a resource? Yes, we will. We are recording actually this session, and we will make sure to post it on our YouTube page and link it on our blog as well. So if you have questions or want to refer back to some of the content that Sabrina has presented, we will make sure to go ahead and link that. I'll actually drop the link to the blog post here in the chat. Any other questions from our panelists, or any other questions for Sabrina? We can go ahead and answer those. Or Sabrina, any final thoughts that you'd want to share?
So I'm just I'm going through the chats and the Q&A really quick just to make sure we answered all of the questions.
There's a new one that just came in.
Yeah,
or a couple new ones. Are there alternative platforms we can use Swift on so that they can be a workaround from having a Mac?
So that is a good question. We have had, in all transparency, we had some teachers try to use virtual machines. It's a real hit and miss with using a virtual machine to run like a parallel, so you can have a Mac OS on the non-Mac machine. I've asked other teachers about that specifically. It is a little bit of a challenge. They're not as successful with that. It's not an option that we recommend. But it is another thing that you can do. With the curriculum, though, one of the things that we have found that the students usually, the students may or may not have access to a Mac at home, but they have access to a Mac at school. And a lot of this is a little bit different, but a lot of schools that do have Mac labs are in the graphic design department. So that might be something to look into, because I know that the coding CTE courses are in a different department than like creative and graphic design. And so maybe seeing if your school has that capability already and working with that teacher across the departments. I know it can be fun sometimes, but that might be an option. But with the curriculum, it is available on Canvas, which can be integrated into an LMS and make it easier for students to access the curriculum, whether they're in the classroom or at home, even if they don't have access to a Mac at home, they can still review their lessons and do reading and whatnot.
Okay, perfect. We had a follow-up question. So speaking about Canvas, we have an attendee who uses ClassLink and they don't see the option to embed the Swift curriculum. Is it available on any other platform besides Canvas, or is it only Canvas?
So with it, you can create a free for teachers account, and I'm more than happy to elaborate a little bit more. I do have like a step-by-step tutorial on how to do this, and I think a different video though we had that laid out. But you can create a free for teachers account if your school does not use Canvas, and you can download the packets, like I forget the acronym that's used, the SCORM, I believe it's the SCORM packets. You can download those and upload those into an LMS that accepts SCORM packets, and most LMS systems do.
Amazing. That will be, I think, super helpful for those that maybe use Blackboard or these other platforms. Okay, we had another question. So in thinking about preparing for the certification, can students use iPads or iPhones to practice for the exam? So as they're going in before taking the certification, we know obviously that runs on Compass. What about the practice beforehand?
Okay, so I've actually tried this to see how well it does. So our exams are selected response. We have a lot of the dynamic question types and whatnot that really assess knowledge and skills that are in the objective domains and align with the Xcode curriculum. The practice tests are available on our Gmetrics platform. And I do see a question about a study guide in Gmetrics, and all of our practice tests do include a study guide. So yes, it is there. Because it is on the Gmetrics platform, you can access it through a web browser, and you can access it through like on an iPad. I have tried this. It is full desktop compatible. So when you do access it on an iPad or a smaller screen, everything gets smaller and can be a little bit of a challenge to see, and maybe a little bit frustrating at times, but it is doable for them to be able to look at that and review. So, and not ideal. I don't think we really support it yet, but it is possible.
Okay. So in thinking about these preparation tools that you've mentioned, we have a teacher who just mentioned that the teaching code with Apple link on our website looks like it's not updated. Can we drop that link, the new link, into the chat?
Yeah.
Or can you tell us what that link
I'm
is?
more than happy to do that. We are aware of that, and it was supposed to be updated before now.
Okay.
So I apologize that it's not, but let me go ahead and grab that link. And it's going to take a second. I will go ahead and drop that down. This link that I'm going to share will actually, on the teaching code with Apple website, there is 2 sections to their webpage. And it is the Learn to Code and then the Develop in Swift. So there's 2 sections of the Anyone Can Code program. The first one is meant to be for younger learners and for like a very intro. That's where the Swift playgrounds and whatnot are. That might be something that you could integrate to look at different things to see how it could integrate into your programs. It is meant for younger learners and anyone can code. But that section is the first half of this webpage, and it's a white background. And as you scroll down to the lower section, it's a black background, and that's where all of the Develop in Swift is, with all the curriculum and where our certification exams align with, and it has the information about the professional development training right below where the certifications are and whatnot. So
perfect. So it's all there in one place, and it looks like Ashley just dropped that into the chat as well. Thanks, Ashley. So this is another question. Is this an in-app exam? For example, with Photoshop, you need to have Photoshop installed. So will you be able to practice or take the exam on an iPad or PC, or do you have to have a Mac desktop or laptop?
Yes, that's a great question. So the exam is a selected response exam. It's not live in the app. And it can be taken on either a Mac or a PC. So we did this primarily, like I mentioned before, we did this because we found that a lot of the testing centers, the computer labs with schools that are certified, Certiport authorized testing centers, their computer labs are PCs, and the Mac labs are not the CATC where they're supposed to take the exam. So we wanted to make sure that the students could access the exam regardless of what devices the testing center used. So they are available on Mac and PC. And in order to be able to do that, we had to go with selected response. We couldn't do live command.
Perfect. And I think that will make it easier for a lot of our attendees who don't have that access. So just to clarify, you only need a Mac to actually try and produce an app. So in preparation for the exam, and theoretically you can study for and pass the exam without access to a Mac.
Theoretically, you could if you wanted to just look over the curriculum and just try to do that. But the curriculum is meant to help, is best learned with practicing and actually writing, like going through the exercises. There are a lot of exercises that are included in the curriculum, and actually going through that so that you understand. And that's what the exams are meant to certify, are those skills.
And we appreciate all of the teachers who don't have access to Macs who are trying to figure out workarounds. So we're happy that you're all here trying to figure that out. We're grateful for you. So one other question: if you use an iPad, would it look different, or how would the interface change between an iPad versus a desktop when they're going in to create their applications?
Going in to create this, so I don't know the answer with that because I haven't personally played around with that. I just have read the release notes on that they added some functionality in with Xcode into iPad OS. It's still best on a Mac OS, but I'm more than happy to look into that more and provide more information if you want to provide your email address.
And Chris, I think these questions have been coming primarily from you. So if you want to drop your email into the chat or the Q&A, we can make sure that Sabrina has a chance to follow up with you. Another question from one of our attendees, Margaret: what specs for Mac OS to run? What are the specs for Mac OS to run Xcode and Swift?
Okay, so I don't know that off the top of my head, but I do know that the information is in, it's in the Apple Store. Like when you go to download it, it tells you what the requirements are right there. They tend to have the most current version available in the App Store and not prior versions. So only Xcode 13 is available in the App Store, and they're really good about supporting all of the current operating systems. I believe it's back 6 or 8 years that they support. I think it's 6 years for operating systems and 8 years for hardware is what they typically support. And so I just
making sure you're updated.
I just updated my MacBook Pro to one of the new ones because my operating system and everything was getting close to the end of that life. And I'm like, okay, to make sure all of my software can work. And so I updated mine. So.
Okay, another question, and I think we can answer this with some of our content that's coming in the next couple of weeks. Because most of the school systems are not necessarily working on Macs, is Swift designed for workforce or is it designed for education as far as the certification is concerned? So
the develop in Swift certifications are primarily focused, I mean, we always, I want to back up just a second. So we always focus our certifications and make sure that they help connect to jobs, that they lead to jobs. So these skills are skills that individuals or that companies are looking for in their workforce. In fact, the state of Virginia, I was just talking to one of the NC3 master educators who helps. He's Alex, I forget his last name, Alex, who will be on one of our next webinars. And if you want to join, I think it's next week, he's presenting on this, presenting for us on how he's building his program. But his program came about because the Department of Workforce Services in the state of Virginia reached out to the Department of Education and to a school district, the local school district, to create a Develop in Swift program because they were looking for iOS app developers and they didn't have that that skill set within their workforce. And so they wanted to not only help build that in academics and help students have a pathway to job, but they also wanted to develop it in their own workforce. So these are definitely skills that are needed in the workforce. We do target these certifications to academic for high school and higher ed. If you look from a skill set perspective, it's definitely the associate exam is intended to, is best fit for a learner who doesn't have any coding experience at all, that's new to coding, that's new to the Swift language and is starting. I mean, Swift is very intuitive, it's very human, and is a great first coding language to learn. The fundamentals curriculum and the certified user exam are best suited for learners who have coding experience and maybe have a couple of other coding languages under their belt, but they're new to Swift. And so that's kind of the differentiation between that. And we tend to see those those students are usually like super advanced high schoolers or community college. And just with the other programs I manage as well, we do see a lot of people trying to upskill or reskill, and they're going to community colleges, they're taking continuing education classes, and they're taking certifications, and they fit within that skill set as well. Just with a level of understanding.
Sure. Yeah, and I wanted to make sure to call out to your point, so I dropped it again for those who missed it the first time. Our next two sessions are all about preparing students for the app economy. So creating that pipeline of skilled workers who can get these skills while they're in education to be able to transition successfully into the workforce. So next week, we're going to have a session specifically about preparing high school students for the app economy. And then on August 17th, we'll be having a session about preparing higher education students for the app economy. And we'll have educators coming in, talking about the resources that they use, the application of the programs, what they find has been most successful. So if you're looking for implementation tips, or advice from educators on how they got this program running in their schools and institutions, those would be incredibly helpful sessions for some of those questions, particularly for those who may be looking for some workarounds or have some generic questions more for educators as well. So we have one final question, Sabrina, that's just come through on the chat. It says, I launched my Gmetrics. What product is Swift under? I'm trying to take a look at it for my students. So for those who maybe already have Gmetrics, we're just wanting a little bit of a preview. Where should we send them?
Awesome. So it's the App Development with Swift program. And I believe you'll see the Swift logo. It's the orange square with the bird. So that is the Swift logo specifically for this program.
And for teachers who already use Gmetrics, they need to purchase a license to be able to have access. Is that correct? To the Swift Gmetrics. Okay, so for those who have Gmetrics, who maybe aren't seeing it or who want a little bit of a preview or a demo, feel free to email me. I'll drop my information here into the chat as well. Or Sabrina, who's also dropped her email here. We're happy to help you get access to that so that we can get you guys onboarded as soon as possible. Any final thoughts, Sabrina, that you wanted to share?
Well, I appreciate everyone coming today. Your questions have been fantastic and awesome. And I'm more than happy to answer any additional questions. If you think about something after the webinar and you want to reach out to me, I did drop my email into the chat. I'm more than happy to meet with you one-on-one as well. And even if you've got any other specific questions or have some ideas or tips or tricks that you want to share, feel free to reach out.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sabrina. And thank you everyone who was able to attend with us this afternoon. We'll have another session next week and we hope to see you all there. Thank you, everyone.